that's the beginning, the intelligent principle that needs to manifest on earth. So you look at it, whatever picture you might have on your mind of what a spirit looks like. What is a spirit? It's pure energy, right? Energy doesn't have form, doesn't have a shape. It's just all over the place. There are no obstacles through it. It goes through anything. So that's the energy that we are all are, right? We are all energy. Now this energy needs to have a journey through a planet, any planet. Our Earth is one of them. And it has all of these elements that are peculiar to this planet. That spirit needs to be on the same orbit, frequency-wise, needs to be able to manifest there. So our paraspirits are specially tailored for Earth. As long as we are here in this planet, we are all going to have the same type of paraspirit. When we get out of it, out of this planet, and go to another one, there will be another paraspirit, a different one. There's a book called The Second Death that explains how Einstein lost his paraspirit when he left Earth. According to this book, he left the planet and he went to another one. So we got a spirit on the left. It has to have some kind of shape for us to recognize it, for us to know that it's a human spirit. By the way, you know, I used to, a long time ago, I used to watch a show on TV that was about ghosts and so on. And they used to have haunted houses. They used to have these spirits manifesting who were not human. They were not from Earth. They used to come from heaven knows where. And I used to sit there and scratch, how could anybody believe that we can have a spirit from another planet on Earth that doesn't belong here? There's a problem with affinity and frequency, with the magnetism that exists in the universe. You don't decide to go to Venus and you go, and you're there. You just can't do that. You have to be able to get into the orbit and have something in common with that planet. Otherwise, you can't be there. So if any time you guys ever heard that we could have a spirit from another planet that is not human, don't believe it, because it's not possible energy-wise, magnetism-wise. You cannot be attracted to the orbit of Earth if you are not in the same vibration. And if you are, then you gotta be human. You have to be assigned somehow to this planet. All right, everything has an aura, has a sort of alter body to it. You see, this is I believe this is our moon. There's something around it. This is from the class I teach on passes. Everything, every single thing in this universe has an aura, has a paraspirit. Now, the butterfly is so pretty because it has no conflicts. It's not saying, do I stay here? Do I go back to Brazil? Do I marry this girl? Do I buy a horse? You know, what am I going to do? Am I going to live in New York, or do I move to Detroit? It has no conflicts. And look how pretty this perispirit is. It's not like ours. Everything, the snail, a wrench, nice leaf, and a penny. Everything. And if, yep,
physical matter of the iron, or is it the energy of the people who touched it?
No, it is from it. It is from the metal itself. Because every matter, every piece of matter on Earth, the mass, it has energy that it emits, that it projects. There is a field called psychometry of mediumship that some mediums, and Chico was one of them, that can take a sword, a knife, and tell the story of that object. You heard of that? Yeah, that's what it is. It does record. It does record whatever happens around it.
Okay.
But it's not because it would not stay if it was from somebody else. It would dissipate. You know, I don't know if you heard of Luis Gasparetto. I was talking to him one time, and I said, you know, I have the mediumship of a door, or a doorknob. I don't see anything, I don't hear anything, I don't perceive anything. A doorknob, he says. You'd be surprised what a doorknob can do. So there is so much more than we need to study about energy. I didn't believe him, but okay, here's the idea. This spirit has to reincarnate here. Now, we're not going to talk that much about the perispirit itself, the attributes and what happens, because this is strictly about reincarnation. This perispirit is another type of study that we do. Okay. According to Kardec, according to the Spirit's book, we are made of the spirit in the middle, the perispirit around it, and then the body. This is what he used as an illustration. Now, in 1857, when Kardec had to assemble a body of knowledge that needed to be instructional, needed to be very clear, anybody needs to be able to understand the Spiritist doctrine. A truck driver, a doctor, a person who went to maybe 4th grade, anyone must be able to understand and grow with this doctrine. Because of this, Kardec had to make it very simple, very straightforward, and had to just remove all that was very confusing. Now, the bodies that we all have, you know, if you read about Buddhism, they say that there's 7 layers. Kardec mentioned 2 outside the spirit, because you cannot explain 7 layers to everybody out there and expect them to understand it. Even all of these belief systems that know or have written books about all these different layers, the etheric body, and they have all different names for it, they all disagree as to exactly what it is, how many layers, and so on. It is very difficult. I have spent a lot of time trying to study the aura. You cannot find anybody who's an authority on it that would tell you, this is it. That's how it is. And that you could say, yeah, I'm going to follow this and believe it. Because of that, Kardec had to leave this stuff out of the doctrine. So he simplified it with the simple 3 components. You know, the spirit before it reincarnates. This is Kardec's determination to make it easy for us to recognize, not that a spirit and a soul are different, but as far as Spiritism is concerned, a soul is incarnated, and a spirit has no body, is disembodied. Okay, so he had he had a spirit, that incarnates and the perispirit around it, because it needs that in order to manifest on earth, and then the body, so it's recognizable and it can move and do things in the planet, right? So the reason I stop here is because a lot of people will say, yeah, but you know that there are other components to this. Thank you. It's allergy that I have. So that, you know, it's true, but we cannot really pin it down. So we'll use this for now. This works very well for us. All right. Now we have energy that is going to a planet, and it has to deal with dense matter. We need this to evolve. We could stay in the spirit world. Why don't we? Why do we need to come to Earth? We need to come to Earth because it's like the fast track of learning. We learn faster when we are in this environment where we have to deal with dense matter. How would a spirit pick up something, move things, get on a bus? A spirit moves with the speed of thought. You think you're there. You do grow and evolve in the spirit world, but it's faster when you have to worry about keeping your job, about getting on the subway on time, about how to deal with your boss, about which profession, which school to go to. That is harder, makes your life difficult, and difficulties and obstacles make you grow, right? As soon as you learn how to solve a problem, no longer have a problem. It disappears, right? So that problem with the profession, I don't know if I sell hot dogs on the corner, I don't know if I'm gonna be a neuroscience. That is, the minute that you decide, this is what I'm gonna do, that's it, no more problem. But until you do, you're examining all your options, listening to people's opinions, and you're learning about this other profession. Hey, that may be interesting, and that other one that is not. So you're learning and you're growing. I was reading just a couple of days ago about an experimental physicist who went into, he's from New York, from the New York area. He went into this profession thinking he was going to be a chemist. And when he started, he decided that he really loved physics, and that changed. But it was a really big, huge decision that he had to make, and it took a long time. So this is the stuff that we go through in order to evolve, in order to grow. What are we going to do? Treat this person nice or not, or all of these questions that we answer. So there is a perispirit for every single thing in this planet. There is a perispirit for everything in the universe. In the mineral kingdom, they have a perispirit. Animal kingdom also. So when you get to the human level, because we do believe in evolution, right? So one day I was a rock. Today I look like a rock. But you grow, you have your perispirit from the time that you were in the mineral kingdom. And it's evolving with everything you learn. You have to I keep taking a step back and go, but God is so smart, so wise. Why create a perispirit for the penny and another one for the man? It's the same one that evolves. The animal kingdom, of course, all the animals have their perispirit. I don't know if you ever read about Ramatiz. Ramatiz said that one of the reasons we should not eat pork, I don't know if you ever read this, or red meat, or cow, is because the perispirit of these animals is damaged because they know they're going to die and they suffer. This book has really makes you, if you can, change your mind and become a vegetarian. When you're ingesting pork, you're ingesting all of that pain, all of that suffering that the animal went through. And of course, it's not good for you. So we don't know, at least I don't, and I don't know anyone who knows, when an animal becomes a human. I have been through this problem in my head trying to figure out its intelligence. But then you look at animals and they are intelligent, right? I saw a documentary that an octopus took this jar, it was closed, there was food inside, it opened the jar and ate the food. On the other hand, there was another documentary I saw that they had baby chimps and they had baby humans. And they had this lucite box and candy inside. And they taught the chimps and the babies to take a little wand and tap here, tap here, tap here, tap here. The door would open, they would take the candy and eat it. This went on for a while. Then one day they opened the box. This is on Discovery Channel. They opened the box and you could just grab the candy. The chimps came by, saw the candy, grabbed it and ran. The human babies came by, tap here, tap there, tap here, and then they grabbed the candy. So what is it? Is it intelligence? Is it those qualities that humans have? Dogs are very loving and loyal. So I don't know where, and I really have never found this answer. But there was one point in time that from the animal kingdom, you become a human being. So human beings, what I'm trying to and you know, if you ever had a question about some of this stuff, you know, went through your head, speak up, because this is how I go after this information.
So you mentioned pork and red meat. What about like fish and chicken and stuff?
Because they have such a small brain that they don't feel the pain. The fish, for instance, they suffocate, and they don't know what's going on. They're struggling because there's no oxygen, but they have no idea what's happening. They're not feeling sad because they're gonna die. They keep biting the hook, you know, the bait all the time. Even if you take a fish, my husband is a fisherman. You take the fish, you let it back into the water, and you put your bait there. The same fish will come and bite it. It's because of the size of the brain that they say chicken and fish are allowed to eat, because they really don't feel the pain. They don't anticipate pain. On the other hand, anybody who ever passed by a slaughterhouse knows that those cows know they're gonna die. They cry all the way to the place. And pigs, I mean. So that's the answer that they gave me. So that I've read about, so by the way. That's why Jesus would eat fish. He ate fish. So that's it. That's all I had for this slide. Now, when anything is going to reincarnate on Earth, it has the same attributes. There is one point in time that all of the embryos look alike. So they're saying here, which one do these embryos belong to? Which species? What kind of animal? The fourth one is a human embryo.
Wow, I thought this was the first.
So when the spirit is out in the out in space, it has to reincarnate. It is an adult spirit. It's a lizard.
Okay.
It has to fit into an embryo. So how does it do that? Our universe is based on the Big Bang Theory, right? Expansion and contraction. And that's what that spirit needs to do. But it's going to go to the same planet that a chicken is going to go. What is happening on Earth is evolution for everybody. So up to a certain point, it is not recognizable as a human embryo. And as it develops, the program from the brain and the perispirit develops into what it's supposed to be. So up to a certain point, it is not known what kind of species that's going to be. Just to tell you that there is no waste in the universe. All right. This is so interesting, I thought, when I saw it the first time. At the time of reincarnation, the spirit and the perispirit, because remember that they're together in the spirit world, the only thing missing is the body. Now it's going to get the body. They form a funnel. And it actually enters the egg at the cellular level. Now, this is another thing that's interesting. It's not the first sperm that arrives that fecundates the egg. The union of the gametes is determined by the vibratory ties. Terrestrial science doesn't understand this. We have the field of genetics, and they study to see if a man has enough sperm and strong enough, and it doesn't matter because it was predetermined what kind, which one is going to actually get to the egg. The perispirit expands. The perispirit of the spirit, right, involves the egg in an energy halo. It then attracts the right sperm, the one that satisfies its reincarnation needs. The right one, not the one on the right. You think about it. We have sickle cell anemia, that and many other illnesses, genetic illnesses, that are peculiar to a certain culture, to a certain class of people, certain families. But then everybody knows that in a family that has the sickle cell trait, not everyone gets it. Why is it that only one, maybe an entire family, would get sick? Because of this kind of selection. This is why it was not so smart of Angelina Jolie to have double mastectomy, because she had an 85% chance of getting breast cancer. How do you know you're going to have it? So if I'm going to have a problem with this leg, I'll cut it off, and so I won't get it. But you have other parts of your body. You're going to get cancer in other places. And there is no guarantee that you are going to get breast cancer just because of the, the statistics. So what she did, which was very brave, a lot of people thought, is going to have consequences. She's going to have what she's supposed to have. And maybe it won't be her breast, but it will be someplace else. Because this program, you can't evade it. This program was well thought out for evolutionary purposes, for things we need to be doing. It's not because of vanity or, cost or fear. It's going to be there, and you have to live it because the purpose is evolution. So if you have that marker on your perispirit, because everything that we ever say or do is recorded on this perispirit. The perispirit is molding the body. So therefore, if you have the marker for cancer, you're going to have it. True, we learned from Spiritism that we can diminish our karmic debts. We can really, really almost do away with it, which is true. But you have to know what you're doing, and purposely, you have to analyze what your problem is. You really have to know how to offset your karmic debts. And I tell you right off bat, every fault that we commit, every error that we commit, it has a nature, right? The nature of this problem is greed. That other one is anger. The other one is disrespect for human life. Whatever the reason that created this karmic problem has to be offset by the same type of problem. So if somebody had a problem with abortion, there's a problem with having babies. It's got to be the same nature. If I have a problem with money, because it doesn't matter what I do, money just disappears from my hand, people rob me, anybody takes advantage of me, the nature of the problem that I created had to do with money. And that's how you study this in order to offset your karmic debts, but not by amputating part of your body. That's not going to do it.
You say that at the time of conception, there is a spirit attached to the egg. So what happened with the miscarriage?
Well,
There is a spirit attached to that, or is
you see, they're all, in reincarnatory laws, there's all kinds of situations. First of all, the spirit chooses or is accepted by the parents. The spirit is actually hanging around the mother for a long time before fecundation, before. The spirit is that, and there are some mediums that could see that their spirits around, oh, you're going to have a baby. So the spirit is there. At the time, this is an adult spirit. It starts shrinking because it has to fit into that egg. Starts shrinking. As it is shrinking, it starts losing its faculties, ability to think clearly, ability to speak, and all that. It starts losing it. It comes near the egg, and it comes out with this halo of energy and grabs it, right? Now, you could have an abortion, and in that case, the whole thing is yanked out. There could be a rejection when the mother says, this is an enemy of mine. I don't want it. Rejects, and then there's a miscarriage. It could be the other way around. The spirit could say, oh, it's that woman that killed me, and I don't want her. It's ejected. So it's not there just because it it did enter the egg doesn't mean that it's done with, finished. All kinds of things could happen. And it could happen too that there are women whose energy field, or the energy field is going out looking to get pregnant. And those are the false pregnancies, because no spirit was assigned to that person, and they somehow feel it. So there's that one too. And you can say something.
Just something I think is striking regarding Spiritist doctrine and with Jana de Angelis about the Spiritism. She talks about the spiritual predisposition
Predisposition.
Because this changes the whole complete idea of disease. Before we think that it comes from your parents or in the family, no, it's in the spirit, it's in the spiritual body, that predisposition. And according with your moral behavior and with the karmic aspect of your life, that will be activated or not. Then you take all the responsibility of the family and you start to look for yourself to better understand why this or that.
All right. Human beings think that embryonic forms are just casual constructions of the flesh. They are the result of precise calculations which follow an exact and detailed life plan. If it wasn't so, a human being would be like building a house without engineers and workers to complete the task. Now, many of us have read in our books that there is a department of reincarnation in astral cities where we might be, and it's really, really planned. There are meetings. You're going to actually decide what is your next life is going to be. Where am I going to be born? Am I going to be a female, a male? What language I'm going to speak? And all of these things are decided, and also the obstacles that you're going to face. During the 9 months of gestation, the spirit recapitulates its entire biologic evolutionary process. That's why in the first week, the human embryo cannot be distinguished from an animal embryo, all the way back there when you saw that other picture that I had. That's why, because it goes back to the beginning, because we do have all of that recorded in us all of the time. The ontogeny remembers the phylogeny. Ontogeny is the development of an individual from fecundation to maturity, and phylogeny is the genetic development of the phylum. Phylum is the class or category that the newborn belongs to. So that's why when you get to that level, then it's decided where you're going to be a Dilson or you're going to be a bunny. Okay, there's a department which is responsible for the careful selection process that the new life will follow, including authorization from the parents. Know this, reincarnation without parent consent is extremely rare. And now, I remember when I used to tell my mother when I was 14, I didn't ask to be born. No, I don't have to do this. Who told you to bring me to earth, Boy, was I wrong, right? Workers from this department followed the case from the creation of the placenta to protect the embryo against shocks, toxins, and so on, to the soul's preparation, establishment in the flesh, all the way up to the self-catalytic process. The workers use magnetism to fasten the miniaturized being in the uterine cavity. Now, the spirit is energy. The spirit comes into the embryo, enters into the body through where? What do we call that little soft spot over here? Goes right through there, starts expanding. It's energy. Starts expanding through every cell in the body. So what I'm saying is that there is no one place where our spirit is. It is in every cell of your body. because it needs to actually take over the entire body, and it takes 7 years to do that. Give and take a few years here or there, because there are no hard rules. So 7 years for this spirit to take over this body. During that time, this child can die for anything whatsoever, because it does not have possession of the body yet, right? 7, 8, 6, 7. Now the spirit is reincarnated. It has the body. So now it starts a process of remembering a little bit of the stuff that it knew before, added to the stuff that it's learning from the parents and where it lives, mixing all of this up to come up with a good personality. Teen years, the adult spirit that reincarnated is full-fledged present. So now all of a sudden we see in my own house, we see a child that behaves in a way that we all love or whatever, and then one day he's 14 and you don't know who this kid is, because they change right in front of your eyes. Why do they do that? Because it's no longer the child. You're dealing with the adult spirit now. Now you're dealing with the karmic, all of this, so many lives that spirit had. Let's say 200 lives. All of the problems it created and all of the things it learned. You know, my oldest grandson, Michael, he used to come to the house and say, Mike, what you do with our Michael? Who are you? He changed so much. So with the other ones, I used to be able to say, all right, who are you? Show me who you are right now, because we all know that they change. We all recognize it, and that's the reason, because it's no longer that child right there. All right.
So it's necessary both parents to authorize the recognition?
What?
Just one parent. It's necessary both parents, the father
Both.
and the mother?
Both. You know, they may not agree because they love it. They may agree because they have to agree, but they agree. And then they change their minds. You know, once the child is born, they recognize somebody they hated, they change. But there is a lot of counseling done in case of families that are, there are not really, there's no affinity and there's karmic reason for this family to be together. The other thing that I remember, very impressed with this, obsessors. Obsessors, they, as you must have studied, I mean, they come in all different levels of hatred. Some hate you from a distance. Others need to make you suffer. They really come close. Others come into this symbiotic relationship where they mesh with the incarnate person. And guess what happens? They get sucked into the reincarnating process. You know, the magnetism that they have to fasten the spirit, they get sucked into the whole reincarnating process, and they didn't mean it, but they're born of that person that they hated so much. Boy, if that's not a huge lesson for somebody to learn, right? All right, the chosen sperm isn't always the most perfect or agile. The chosen sperm is the one that matches the requirements for the spirit's needs. Thus, we inherit from ourselves the body's heredity. The body's heredity is completely dominated by the spirit's heredity. So, you know, once they understand this, our science understands this, there's a whole lot of fields that are going to have to change, you know. Genetics is going to have to change a lot. Okay. It's an energetic organism that obeys two basic forces, expansion and contraction. The first impulse has a hyperdynamic quality. It's constructive. It creates conditions for growth, activity, and increase in metabolism. The second is hypodynamic, creates rest, decreases metabolism and degeneration. Contraction decreases the vital principle, and expansion makes it dynamic. Therefore, they're not necessarily spatial movements. They're dynamic and vibrating movements. This is important to know because when we are sick, our perispirits are contracting, they're expanding. When we say to somebody, my heart goes out to you because you're hurting. Your heart, your energy, your perispirit is really going out to that person and touches that person and comforts that person. Although you didn't quite mean it, but that's what happens. In our words, very, very, most of the time actually, they are very definitive of how we feel and what's going to happen. In the world we live in, we need a perispirit, even in the spirit world. Although they act a little different because if I'm sitting right next to somebody, their perispirit is touching mine, and they interchange. In the spirit world, you can't go through somebody's perispirit, but that's another story. It has the same cell tissues and same organs as the physical body. Human anatomy is exactly the same as spiritual anatomy. These structures work in precise connection with the spirit, and they form an indestructible unit. If you ever hear somebody say, oh, I left my body and I went to see my aunt in Brazil. You didn't leave your body. You cannot break these three elements. You cannot separate them. You project them, but you could not separate them. Your body is not going to be left alone, and your soul is going to completely leave it, right? You have the silver cord anyway, right? So, there is no way of breaking these three up. It always reflects the spirit's state of health to the minutest detail, that the spirit. The entire system is controlled by the brain. The brain is the most complex part of the system. So the periphery gets sick in order to protect the mind, because the brain is the most important thing, and keep balance. And the periphery is the perispirit. Finally, the body becomes ill to protect the integrity of the spirit. But when the mental condition loses control, there's no way it can prevent illness. Then your body becomes sick. So by the time we become ill, we have been sick for a long time. The perispirit is trying to keep the balance and trying to keep us healthy.
What do you mean exactly in the last paragraph? But when the mental conditions
The brain, right, loses control. There's no way that it can prevent the illness. And this is why they have all of these therapies, the think positive thoughts, don't anticipate problems and the worst, because that's the brain keeping control. That they have therapies to right. Thinking positive, doing all you can to offset that illness. So you started with something, whatever it was. You're sick. Instead of saying, and this you'll recognize all the time. Instead of saying, oh my God, I'm going to die with this and that's it. Instead of that, you're saying, what else can I do here? I'm going to go to this doctor. I'm going to take this medication. I'm going to do something. I'm going to keep a good outlook on life. Your brain is keeping control of the entire system. When your brain gives up.
Can I ask a question? What happens in the process of
Yeah, because when we meditate, the body actually takes that opportunity to renew the cells, because our bodies are changing all the time. They say that every 7 years you're a different person. So if the brain is going on 24/7, it's going on all the time, it doesn't have a chance to regroup and renew the cells. And that's why the meditation really needs to happen, especially when a person is sick. Otherwise, there's no repair being done, because the system is being used all the time. You have to unplug it so that the renewal process can happen. So even if it's 10 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever it is, we're trying to finish in time. Too late already, okay. Expansion promotes the building of organs, gives impulse to life. Contraction destroys and signals death. That's how the organism is constantly being renewed. All functions of the perispirit are born out of this balance and alternating process. Consequently, so does the physical body. Decreasing one conditions the expansion of the other, like a spring which, if contracted, has a tendency to expand, and if expanded, has a tendency to contract. These are the principles of action and reaction that govern all the phenomena in the universe. In the universe, be it physical, chemical, biological, or spiritual, we are doing that. When we are afraid, we pull away. But when we are happy, we expand. So there's a constant.
You have until 7:15.
Yeah, okay. All right. It's the reason that growth, destruction, life, and death must alternate in the evolutionary stage. It's just a conditioning one that facilitates the development of the other. For spiritual forces govern also the conscience, not just the physical cellular metabolism, because it also has an energetic base. In contraction, the conscience is depressed and fades momentarily. And when it expands, it's exalted and developed. Therefore, the spirit, just like matter and energy, has a cyclic synthesis. So every time a new phase starts, it goes through a period of renewal. That's embryonic. I'm going to skip around. Embryonic growth in a short space of 9 months relives the millions of years it already lived. The same occurs with physical death. When the conscience, after a brief period of contraction, expands, it immediately reconstructs, it recapitulates all the phases lived in the last incarnation. This is why people say, I saw my life roll in front of my eyes. Did you ever hear that? That people say that? It's true. Because of this contraction, you relive the very quickly, but you relive all the life that you just finished, which I'm not looking forward to that. I can't avoid it, but I'm going to look the other way, baby.
Oh, so cute.
And that's it. Look at the eyes on that first.
It's obsessed.
Because it is planned. Our lives are planned. We could change, but they are planned. Our mentors are looking at us constantly. The minute that we are doing a little better, they get all excited. All right, maybe we could do a little bit more. Because we cannot stagnate. There's no way. Even when you see somebody who apparently is not doing anything with their lives, they're just sitting around, couch potatoes, scratching and so on, believe me, things are going on. They are not just sitting there stagnating. It's not possible, because your soul is expanding and you're learning, you're taking in what's happening, even if you're just watching TV. So evolution is mandatory. We cannot stop it, right? If you made a mistake, or when, not if, but when we make a mistake, and please notice that we Spiritists don't say sin, evil, because they are mistakes that we have to redo, we have to do over sooner or later, regardless of the problem that we created. Now let's suppose you're 40 years old and you remember that when you were 25, you did something horrible to somebody, whoever, doesn't matter. You did something horrible. It's past, that person has moved out and so on. And now you live with that guilt. Remember this, we attract the things that we need to go through in this life according to the things that are recorded on our perispirit. So even though you were not supposed to do what you did, that's for sure, and you're going to pay for that, that's for sure. That person was not victimized because that person was clearing up a problem that they had. So now, when I meet somebody, it's not like I'm going to say, you know, I'm going to make you suffer so that you can purify your perispirit. I'm going to stick a knife in you because, no, I am always, always supposed to do the right thing, to do good, to be compassionate, to be tolerant, to be loving. If I am not, what I'm thinking of doing, even if I don't do it, what I say I'm going to do, even if I don't do it, or if I do it, regardless, gets recorded on my perispirit. And that's the marker that is going to attract exactly the problem of the same nature that I created. So it's going to come back to me either way. Now, somebody, let's say I was a horrible child, right, to my mother. I did tell her that I didn't ask to be born, but I wasn't so bad. But suppose I was a bad child, and this is in our gospel, by the way. Then I have one. How come I have this bad child? What? I am so loving to this child. I do everything right. How come I have such a tough time? And then you have parents who are horrible. And they have just children who love them and are always catering to them and doing everything right. How did that happen? That doesn't sound like something's wrong. There is no injustice in God's world. If there was, there would be no God. There are no victims, ever, regardless. If it's a child, that child is not a child. That's an adult spirit temporarily in a child's body. Why would this baby die of this horrible illness? This is not a baby. This is an adult spirit temporarily in the form, the shape of a baby. If you say, I believe in God, everything you do and say after that statement is going to prove it or disprove it. If you say, I believe in God, and look how horrible this world is, God is punishing everybody, you don't believe in God, right? Reincarnation is what goes around comes around. It comes back to you, and you have to relive it until you learn. So, I'm done.